You're listening to Music Tectonics.
Dmitri here. This is Music Tectonics at Midem. I'm podcasting from Cannes along the Riviera in France this week. Midem is an international conference for the music industry that has been taking place since 1967. On this episode, I have Kevin O'Donnell here with me. Kevin heads music partnerships at Twitter, where he works with artists to tell their stories on Twitter. Prior to joining the company in 2017, he's been a music journalist for over 13 years, serving as an editor and writer at Entertainment Weekly, People, Spin, Rolling Stone, and probably more. He's also been a contributing writer on music and pop culture for the New York Times, here's the more, the Washington Post, NPR, Village Voice, and elsewhere. Welcome to Music Tectonics, Kevin.
Hi there.
How's it going?
Great. How are
Good.
you?
I'm great. I know you don't have a ton of time. So glad you took the time.
Yeah. Awesome.
We got this beautiful view of the water here.
Awesome.
Your first time in Cannes, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's great.
Awesome. So let's just jump in. What are some facts about music on Twitter that many people in the music industry may not realize?
Facts on music industry and Twitter.
Yeah.
Well, I think one thing that I've noticed in my time since joining the company, I think there's this perception that Twitter, there's a high barrier to entry for artists to use Twitter. Some might feel that they have to have something especially profound to say, or have like a very strong voice, or a very vocal opinion on a certain subject or issue. But that's actually not the case. So I think, for artists, they should feel like they can lean into Twitter in a very easy way. They can join the conversation, which is basically what we do really well. Twitter is the place where artists can connect with their fans in a very easy way. They can do it at any time, 24/7. And it doesn't really take a lot for artists to connect with their audiences and their fan base. Simply just going onto the platform and just replying to fans is a really easy thing to do, but the impact that it has is immeasurable.
It's interesting because Twitter feels like it has almost like a liquid quality to it. Like it's very easy to come in and out, whereas some other platforms, you feel like you've got a lot of preparation to do to post, which is it's interesting given the origins of Twitter that there's this remember the term microblogging, which I haven't heard in years, but that just like put it up there, just get it going,
right? And
now it feels like there's so much like curation and care and all this stuff that sometimes I think is a barrier for artists.
Yeah, and I think there's kind of two types of artists and how they use Twitter. There are the ones who are on it all the time, right? And they are constantly tweeting. They're having conversations with their fans. They're weighing in on important issues, like people like Cardi B or Cher, for instance. They're always on the platform. But then there are the other ones who only tweet at like very momentous occasions, and those have that reach and that impact on those tweets, like at newsworthy moments, also has incredible impact. You can do a little bit of both and still have your voice heard on Twitter.
So there's some people who are like syndicating their life, like Twitter's origins in a way,
Totally.
and other people who they come in and out, but when they have something to say, it's like scarcity of information.
Totally, it's a news-making moment. I'm thinking of an artist like Adele or an artist like Beyonce. They'll go on Twitter to share things that matter to them, and when they do, they're like these earthquaking moments.
Do you think that has mostly to do with the personality of the artist, of which strategy they choose?
Yeah, I think, and that's what Twitter is great at, is letting people be their authentic selves and talk about things that matter to them.
Right, cool. So at Music Tectonics, we talk a lot about what are the seismic shifts happening beneath the surface and how that impacts the music industry, oftentimes as a result of innovation, technology, so-called, quote, disruption. What's the biggest impact social media you think has had on the music industry?
Well, I think when it comes to Twitter specifically, one trend that I've really loved seeing kind of take shape in the last year or so is just the idea of meme culture, and how fans of artists are leaning into creating their own GIFs or photos or topics of conversation around the artists they love, and how those kind of like spread virally. And what I've been seeing a lot now is how artists are leaning into the meme culture more. So as opposed to them like running away from it and being like, oh, I don't know how to do like a meme, they're taking part in it. A perfect example is Casey Musgraves. As everyone saw at the Grammys this year, when she won Album of the Year, there was that great cutaway to her sitting in the audience where she had this like really shocked reaction. So everyone took like one frame grab from that video clip, and it's her kind of making a weird face, and it just became this meme literally within hours on Twitter. So instead of her just totally ignoring it,
she loved it at first, I'm sure.
Right. Well, like, here's the thing, like, it's not the most flattering,
Yeah.
photo of her. It's a screen grab,
Yeah.
but she leaned into it. And she was like, all right, there's this one tweet where she posted, she's like, all right, let the memes begin. And she's totally like taking part in the conversation and, having fun with it, even to the point where I think she made her own pop sockets with that face on it. So I think that's a really cool thing about Twitter with meme culture and its development, is how artists are embracing it instead of running away from it.
And do you think it's pretty much like if something organically happens, you have to be ready to jump on it? Or do you think there's other things? Have you seen artists doing other things to kind of like even incubate more memes?
Yeah, totally. I think they'll, look, the conversations can shift at a moment's notice. So I think sometimes, artists will like lean in right away with like a meme or a conversation. Sometimes they may take like a news cycle, like 24 to 48 hours to lean in, just see like how the temperature and the, the winds will shift. Yeah, I've seen both.
Yeah, cool. So let's broaden out a little bit. What do you see as the future of social media and music? So we've gotten to this place where something like memes comes along, and now people are embracing it, even kind of figuring out how to make it kind of come out a little more.
Yeah.
Where do you see things going down the road?
Well, I think, at first, social media is like a really relatively new phenomenon if you think about it, right? So I think a lot of platforms, have been experimenting with how can we, add these bells and whistles onto, this service that we offer to people. But I think what's going to be happen is, these services are going to really hone in on what they do well. And make that the perfect thing it can be. With Twitter specifically, that's what we're doing. We're really leaning into focusing on conversation and connecting audiences with their artists with their audiences.
Yeah.
That's what we do well, and we are all about improving the health of the conversation and making sure people can feel like they are safe when they go onto Twitter and they want to talk to people. So our strategy is to really focus on making a great product.
That's cool. I think it makes a lot of sense to think about differentiation, given that so many platforms have emerged since Facebook and Twitter, and we still see more coming up. Although they're always a little bit different. And I'm curious how you see Twitter music engagement kind of continuing to have those types of relationships, given the emerging shifts in the way people are using other new social creativity platforms, such as the ones that are coming out of Asia, for example. It's like a different way of interacting.
Yeah.
How does Twitter fit in as that stuff comes out?
Well, I think one thing when it comes to all these other, social media platforms, what's important is that it's not just a catch-all for all of them. You can't just do one thing on one platform and do it on the other. They all have their own sensibilities, and it's, they have their own audiences that are leaned into those platforms. So it's really important for artists to think that they can't just do a post on Instagram and have it go on Twitter. They have to use Twitter for what we do, and what we do great is connecting people together.
Yeah, that's interesting. I want to dig in just a tiny bit more. What are the best ways for artists to create that kind of conversational engagement?
Yeah. So authenticity is the most important thing. It's a thing people talk about a lot, but there's a reason they do. So people need to go on, to Twitter to talk about things that matter to them. And, that can be anything like, a political or social topic that is of interest to them, or if they want to share information about a project that they're promoting. That's what artists should be using Twitter for, is to, talk about things that are important to them.
It's interesting, we're here at Midem, this music industry conference, and Music Tectonics is very much a lot of times about kind of music tech and B2B sort of things. We haven't talked about commerce at all in music and Twitter. Do you get involved with that aspect, or is it really just about audience building and the whole commercial aspect of how artists and labels and publishers are generating revenue is kind of their problem? Right.
Well, in my role specifically, I'm here to help artists market themselves and to tell their stories best on Twitter. So that's helping to evangelize for the platform and to educate them on what the product is and how to use it in a sophisticated way that feels authentic. But, I think a lot of, the labels and the digital marketers that are labels, they use Twitter as a way to get real-time information about, conversations that are happening or how fans are reacting to product, whether it's a song, a tour, or whatever. Mm-hmm. So instead of them having to wait a full week to get, sales insights on, or streaming insights on how, the first week sales did for a record, they can go on, Friday after music drops and see what people are saying, and they can sometimes, it definitely does happen where they evolve their marketing strategies accordingly. So if an artist puts a record out and the focus track is, X song, they might see that no one's really talking about that song. They've all latched onto this one other track, and then they'll shift their marketing strategies to lean in more into that track.
That's interesting. The other thing that I think about when I think about Twitter is, because you led with words, these mini posts, and I know obviously you can post a lot of other stuff on Twitter now as well, but since you led with words, it feels like that word first component is very ripe for conversation, because when you have other assets, they're not that video is not static, but it's not, you can't talk to a video, you know what I mean? But you can respond to words in a way. I don't know, there feels like there is something there, but it also makes me think, it kind of like what you're saying, you look to see what fans' reaction, it almost feels like it's a search engine for the conversations a lot of times. It's harder to do that on some of the other platforms.
Totally.
You can't search a photo. If everyone's just posting photos, it's hard to like see that conversation in a way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But it makes me wonder, does that mean that Twitter lends itself to kind of like lean forward fans, whereas other people are sitting back, lean back, wait to have somebody feed stuff? Like they're like searching for stuff, they're engaging in a way.
Yeah.
So are those fans first movers, for example, compared to other platforms? I don't know if you have any insights on that.
Yeah, I think, just this idea of conversation, we think of it as just being words, but on Twitter, like, conversation takes many shapes and forms. People communicate strictly in emojis.
Yeah, true.
So, I think Twitter has helped change the very definition of how people talk to each other.
Yeah. Yeah, I keep thinking somebody needs to come up with more diversity of emojis. Like, it feels like there's a single set of emojis. I'm like, where's the rest of the I mean, there's so much Twitter should have your own set of emojis.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, we do that actually with artists. We will create custom emojis for them when they have like a record.
What are some good
out.
artists to look up that have their custom emojis?
Well, in the past, so they'll be active for a certain amount of time on the platform, and then they go away. But for Cher, for instance, when she did the Mamma Mia soundtrack, we did one custom emoji for every track on the record.
That's
which
cool.
is great.
I totally missed that.
For Cardi B, we did the replication of the cover for Invasion of Privacy, which looked just like that face she made with the sunglasses on.
That's ripe.
Yeah, and fans love them because they just feel very personal, and it gets them excited about talking about the project they love.
Cool. I'm going to ask you one question that I've just been thinking about as we've been talking. Just thinking about the fact that you have this strong history as a music journalist. What was it like to make the shift from the role you had as a music journalist to this role that you have of helping artists create conversations in a totally different kind of medium?
It was actually fairly easy, to be honest, because at the end of the day, in journalism, it's all about storytelling. And on Twitter, it's really about storytelling too, and sharing your points of views on things. It's just in a very different kind of way. It's a very real-time kind of idea. But yeah, at the end of the day, you're just trying to get people's points of views across, tell their stories, and help them connect with audiences.
Well, I agree. As somebody who runs a PR firm, I get it about the storytelling. We think and talk a lot about that, about how we're going to build those stories and so forth. But it's interesting because now you're kind of in the role of facilitating these conversations, which is a different way to have the stories emerge. Yeah,
it's a little bit more behind the scenes, but that's like so much fun, because I want to help artists, make them feel comfortable and feel like they're authentic, and that they're just speaking their truth on Twitter.
Cool. Makes sense. Yeah. Hey, so what are your primary goals at Midem this year?
To get people excited about Twitter. We've been around for, over 10 years, and I want people to come away thinking that Twitter is a really important place for them to promote their projects, to use it to promote their projects. They should be baking in Twitter into their marketing and even editorial strategies. Everyone, artists tell me all the time how the first thing they do is they go on Twitter every morning to see about, get updated on what's happening in real time. And I think that is really important. I hope people come away, having a newfound love for Twitter.
Cool, awesome. Well, I hope you have a great first Midem.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Thank
really
you so
appreciate
much.
that. Yeah, thanks for listening to Music Tectonics. Please hit the subscribe button so you can find out about our other coverage at Midem. We're going to be interviewing more of the startups from the Midemlab. You may have heard some of our episodes on that. So we've got more of those startups coming. So subscribe. Go to musictectonics.com to sign up for our newsletter for a $50 discount to our Music Tectonics conference that's coming up October 28th and 29th in Los Angeles. Thanks for listening. We'll be back from Midem shortly.
You're listening to Music Tectonics.